a revelation between heaven and Satan while I'm steady creating and trying to separate the
Morning, folks. Howdy, howdy. Just getting lots of things set up here. Hey, Raver. Give us a challenge, Raver. I was just racking my brain for a challenge. Absolutely. I don't know what that means. Tournament starts in 35, 40 minutes, Helgilda. Something like that. I just figured I'd sit here for half an hour extra to see to increase the attendance for you all. I'm just gonna sit here and drum up entries. That's it. That's it. Yeah, we're using chess.com, Raver. And you see when people hit excellent play, those are the links to today's tournaments, which are still half an hour off. And yeah, where should I pull a problem from? Four-player chess server and join my game. No thanks, Raver, I have to find something here for everybody to puzzle on, and I need to stay tuned into chat right now. I need like a puzzle for the chat night love. I need something to get other people's brains running before their tournament. So I need like a good little warm up for people. So yeah, so it's not for me. I'm just gonna be doing commentary today. It's for those joining in. Okay, here's just a couple puzzles for you all. To get started on. To join the tournament, Raver, the links are in the chat. Every time someone hits !play, the links pop up. So you guys can just shout out answers to these puzzles. That's totally cool. You don't need to give anyone else time. Just shout out some stuff and we'll see where we're at. Okay, Charlie suggests queen d5, knight c7. Looks good, right? All right. Here's another White's move. All right, let's see. We've got Zweb with a suggestion here. And Charlie as well. Same suggestion. They've got it, folks. All right. I'm going to add a... Oh, Exclam Arena is here. All right, check this out, folks. Check this out here, the arena. That's what's coming up after our tournament, and it's the playoffs in this league. So it's a sub battle against AKA Nemsko, AKA someone we've got to beat down. So, yeah. That's coming up right after, and at this point, it's the playoffs, so we just have to win that match, basically. Okay, Zweb's got this one too. Rook h8, and then just a beautiful little smother with the bishop. Very nice. And, you know, folks, go invite your friends to come play in today's tournament or in today's sub battle, depending on their schedules and their preference between Rapid and Blitz. The sub battle will be Blitz at 1 p.m. Pacific, which is 3.5 hours from now. The Rapid or the tournament here will be Rapid 15-minute games starting within half an hour. All right, here we go. Black to move right here. Hey, Rude. How's it going? All right, Scott's got the answer here. I love you too, Rude. And yeah, I am a fan of MVLs. Yeah. Hey, Sean. This is a beauty. This is a favorite checkmate of many people. This one's gorgeous. It was invented by someone named Bowden. Let's see what the info says, Rohit. I'm not actually sure myself, so I'm going to hit Exclam Arena, and I'm going to read the information here as carefully as I can. It's playoff time. Our 3-2 sub-battle versus Akanemsko is scheduled for this Sunday, October 3rd at 1 p.m. Pacific. If you'd like to play, please sign up here. Then there's a link. The sooner the better. Also, a friendly reminder to take part in the arena giveaway for a chance to do. Okay, it doesn't say in here, so let's click on the signups and see if it says so. The signups look empty. What? Ooh. Nemsko herself is signed up to play, so Kosti should sign up. You can still join the tournament, Yerud. You're on time. There's no verified section today. When I came back from Hawaii, the attendance in the tournament was down quite a bit, so I've been running it in 3 sections. so that there's enough opponents in each section. When attendance goes back up, I'll split it into more and more sections again, including verified sections. Her rating, it looks like, is about 2,400. So she'd be in the right bracket to get paired against Kostya. I think these sub battles work as in they have sort of rating brackets, and you play somebody close to you in rating from the other team in the sub battle. So, Mario, you should be able to join through the old live chest. That's what I'm using to watch it. I can't figure out how to use play. So I'm in live chess right now, and I can see the tournaments there. The verified Hosepud is people who have verified their identity with Kostya, in some way shown who they are, and then it's assumed that they won't ever be cheating because their true identity and reputation are known and on the line, and they also couldn't make 20 different accounts and keep coming back into the verified section. So the verified section, is basically like a place for people who are happy to trade their anonymity for their opponent's anonymity, thereby perhaps reducing cheating or something like that. Yeah, Mario, there's a lot I can't figure out in the new play, so I'm not sure how they're going to transition when the play doesn't yet seem nearly ready. Right now, Foo's Moobot blocks all links, no matter where they're from or to. Yeah, I mean, Zoom rooms can work too, Mario, but that's a bigger investment in time and effort and people to watch it. Chess Dojo doesn't have like an army of tournament directors and arbiters to sit around checking people like that. That comes up more when there's like big prizes and more at stake, more on the line. Sean, if you play Blitz at a 1200 rating against players with a Blitz rating around 1200, it should be fine. It won't really be bringing you down. You'll just maybe learn to get your Blitz skills to catch up a bit with your Rapid skills. But today's tournament, of course, is Rapid, so you'd be playing in the 13 to 1700 section against other people very close to you in Rapid. But if you want to play in the arena and get paired for one Blitz game with somebody rated 1200, that's perfectly acceptable. If that's what you're asking about, I don't think that'll hurt you, nor would it be unfair for the arena. There's a lot of people who are rated, 200 or 300 points higher in Rapid or Blitz, and it's fair. There is an exception list somewhere. Okay, cool. I'll take it up with with someone else in the dojo. Can we take the horse? Asks Neve. Yeah, Neve, what move do you want to play here? Zweb says knight takes bishop, h takes bishop, knight takes rook. Whoa. Zweb is saying knight takes bishop, h takes bishop, knight takes rook. Knight takes bishop. Black doesn't have any knights that can take bishops. at that point. King takes bishop. Rook takes d5. Sorry, Webb. I couldn't understand that one. Oh, I see. It's two different variations. All right. The Blitz sub battle with Nemo. It says, Rohit, 1 p.m. Pacific. Rook takes d5. Some people are saying, yep. That's good just to start with. Right? The first move is to take the knight with the rook, attacking the queen. Black has no time to take your bishop because you're attacking their queen, and they can't take the rook with the knight because of this. Yeah. All right. Another. This is white to play. The rapid tournaments are rated. Yeah, Rohit. The tournaments that are starting in 20 minutes will be rated. All right, Chess Talk tells us this one. You trade 2 undefended pieces, get in there, win one of them, and boom. Very good, Sean too. Welcome to the your rating doesn't matter place, Rohit. We don't care about your rating, and we're going to keep not caring about it until you don't care about it. You're correct, Erud. Good read. All right, everybody here wants bishop c5, huh? Beautiful. And you had a plan here? Bishop c5, folks. I shouldn't have played this move until you all told me your plan, but great. Take it with check. It's probably also winning to take it with the rook, by the way, but has chess impacted my life, Erud? Well, yeah, look, I spend like so much of my life playing chess. This one here is Black's move. All right, so we've got 8 players in the over 1700 section, at least 8 players in the 13 to 1700, 6 players in the under 1300. So we need at least 2 more players under 1300. More. Sean Pinto says, let's just go attack those pieces with the knight. Get checked. Sean and Chess Talk, do you guys have a plan for what to do about this? One of you wanted to play King H8 and one of you wanted to play King G7. King G7, Queen G6, lol. Like, we're happy or we're having a facepalm moment? Okay. So King G7, Queen G6 check, King H8, Rook F8 is checkmate, right? Ow. So we'll try the other direction. King H8, Rook F8, the king could go to G7. And then on Queen G6 check, the king escapes by capturing that rook. Since, like, thank goodness the rook is close. Oh, there's a rook here too. Well, that rook was just outside of the puzzle for all of us. Did I have the file cut off? No, there it is. It's on the board. So why was I thinking there was checkmate on G8? I don't know what's going on. Love you too, Pravid. Good to see you here. So what's going on with this puzzle now that there's an invisible rook here? Black seems very safe. I don't know. Like 10 of us at least didn't see that rook, myself included. It's easier to solve the puzzles when you see the pieces. Yeah. It should be safe to just take the rook now with the knight, right? It's hard to imagine something stronger than that. I mean, what's white maybe threatening? Queen takes h6 is the biggest threat probably, right? And then Queen G7 will defend. This puzzle is making me feel uneasy because I'm not comfortable with having not seen the rook on a8, so I kind of want it to be over. So I can stop, you know, psychologically. I don't want to spend a lot of time staring at my failures. But that's what we chess players have to do, is like spend a lot of time putting our failures under a microscope and getting better at them. So why did I forget about this rook over here? I guess it's partly because that file falls just under my chat window. And I was mostly watching chat to see you guys answer the question. Okay, so we'll take the rook. We'll get on with our lives. We're going to do one more of these sort of like 15, 1600 rated puzzles, and then we'll put on one or two difficult ones before the tournament starts. I mean, not to say these weren't difficult. I mean, we'll put on like one or two that are like even higher up. So here it's white to play. That's true, Renga. I would have developed my rook long ago. I don't play games without my pieces. Renek calls out that it's a forced mate right here. You can see for yourself, Checkmate Wee. If you click on the link, it'll show you the list of players in your section. If you want to scout them out before you decide whether or not to join. Okay, Darido's got the answer. I don't see any signs on my end of the connection being bad, but if other people are having problems with the stream, please let me know. Yeah, I see you in there, Darido. Presuming that Darido and Garido are one and the same. All right, nice little rook roller, right? Okay, so now let's go back and let's make the rating range super high. Or reasonably high first, and then maybe super high for one more puzzle after that. All right, here you go, folks. Now these are high up. Okay. Now the 2000s are kicking into high gear and answering the questions quickly. A little queen sack to set up bishop h3 check and the beautiful little back rank mate. It looks mating. It is mating. Very nice. All right, so here is white to play. Yeah, you guys are thinking of rook d7. It does look tempting. Check it for defenses. Why not, Stamen? I remember you weren't able to late join last tournament. Wonder if there's something wrong with your like rapid rating or your account or something. Because I mean, the tournaments haven't started yet. Anyone should be able to join them. It's not even a late join. They should just be completely open. Okay, you got it. Good. That's right, Darido. There's not Wrath of Gods. All right. I'm very confused what to do. Rook e to d6, Polly. What is going on here? Hey, Gorkum. Welcome to the Sunday tournaments. 1700 plus section is kicking off very soon. So for those of you over 1700, hurry up and join. It's go, go, go time. Rook takes queen, bishop takes queen. Go, go, go. You can't take your opponent's queen twice. Once you've taken it, you've taken it. Ah, Wrath of Gods. Good call. Good thing I'm not playing in today's tournament. All right, here, here, here. 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 All right, let's not make it any harder. Here's probably the last puzzle for our 2,000 plus people before their tournament starts. This is white to move right here. And did black just play rook c8? That's truly bizarre. That's truly bizarre. Why was black's last move rook c8? Oh, there was a white rook there. Okay. Okay, Wrath of Gods and Hosepud. Not impressed with this puzzle. Take here, and then just checkmate into, I suppose. Not that white even needs that checkmate into. With the black bishop and rook trapped, and white, you know, just kind of checkmating the black king in a million ways. So, that was weird. Let's do another. Yeah. Well, now you guys got yourselves a weird one. Try to untangle these knights in your head, huh? What this is a stampede in a corner. Steve North, the king could move to b8 once you move your knight off of a6. Folks, don't forget to join the tournaments. Starting in just a couple minutes. I know these nights are tantalizing. But games are starting in just a couple minutes. If any of you have a pregame routine, you can go do your pregame routine now. Put the cashews next to your mouse. Get your glass of water. All right, a couple of you found the weird knight ones. So the key is to put this knight here so that you'll control the move knight b6 from the opponent. It's counterintuitive because it feels like knight a6 lets you give a checkmate at some point with knight c7. But you have to checkmate via Zugzwang actually. So you set up so that you're taking away the move knight b6 from your opponent, and you can only checkmate after they move their knight and give you that square. So endgames are kind of like the opposite of middle games. In a middle game, you'd be going for the weak square, right? In an endgame, you take away your opponent's squares, and you instead of making threats, you wait for them to walk into something that you're doing. Now the king is able to approach here, right? And if this knight came to b5 with check, you could take it with this knight. They would still have to move this knight at some point, and you'd get checkmate. Okay, so black plays knight c6, and what's next? After knight b5, you take it, Wrath of Gods, yeah? All right. So Hosepud and Daster and Chesstock and Darido all saying let's grab this one. That's correct. Now this position normally, if your opponent didn't have a knight, would be a draw by stalemate, right? That's why king and two knights can't checkmate on their own. But here your opponent has a useless knight wandering around the board. It has to move, and then you can complete the checkmate. Very good, everybody. All right, now it's time for the tournament. Let's get ready. Let's get set. You guys go into focus mode, and I'm going to go into broadcaster mode. So we're going to turn off these puzzles and grab this board here to watch the games. Good luck, everybody. For those of you playing, we salute you. Have fun, stay focused, do your best. Don't mess up on move 2 of your first game. Make sure to get settled into the rhythm of the tournament before you play any decisive moves that might cost you a whole game. All right, 1700 plus, last chance to join. We got 40 seconds till game time. For those of you who are here just to watch, you're all good too. You're welcome. You don't need to put your ego, your brain, your energy on the line every time. You can just chill out and enjoy it. We'll surely have some entertaining games to watch together here. All right. Anybody else looking to get in? There are the links again for the tournament. Good morning, Seth. Good luck in your 13 to 1700 section. Here come the first games of the 1700 plus section. Popping open. Pawns racing towards the center. And for anybody who's new to our tournaments for some reason, while you're playing your games, either mute or pause the stream so you don't hear me blabbing the whole time you're playing. That's a dojo convention. We don't listen to the stream while we're playing. You never know when I'm going to pop over to your game and say like, oh my gosh, knight e4 wins for black here. And then you're like, oh shoot, I just heard David say that. What do I do with that information? So, yeah, if you're in the tournaments, please kick off for a little bit while you play. And then, of course, you can rejoin us between games, between rounds, ask questions about the game you've just played, or watch your competition and all that sort of stuff. So here go the dojo friends. White grabbed early space in the Queen's Gambit with c5, trying to cramp black. But black just quickly plays b6, and white apparently didn't feel prepared to play b4 and a3 and support the space grab, so they just traded it off. And that should come fairly close to equalizing the game. It equalizes the pawn structure. Let's look at development and stuff. Even though white spent time on c5, white's ahead one tempo on development, and this bishop needs some work to get into the game. Interesting. Okay, so black plays bishop b7, probably planning to have the bishop's influence felt through the d5 pawn by plunking on e4. But we'll see how that develops. So there we go. I guess black's move a6 was the tempo that white traded for c5. So yeah. How to get in the right mental state in the morning. Yeah, Checkmate Wee. There's lots of great things you can do to get into a good mental state in the morning. One is going to sleep early the night before. That'll help you out. If you stay up all night, you probably won't be in a great mental state in the morning. That's one of my most common reasons to be in a bad mental state in the morning. And then a second one. Oh, by the way, 13 to 1700 section, your games have kicked off as well. So you guys make sure to go in there and make your first moves, because your games are up. We'll continue answering Wee's question in a second. And the under 1300 folks, your tournament is starting in 1 minute and 20 seconds. So get ready. So they're sleeping. That can be good for a mental state in the morning. I think exercise will get you rolling pretty quick. I like a smoothie. I mean, this is like a dream. This is something that basically never happens. Checkmate Wee, but maybe you've got more scope to control your life than I do, or I don't know. But man, a smoothie, that's refreshing. That'll kick me into gear. And a shower can do it. So yeah, I mean, it's sort of like, taking care of body kind of stuff is the stuff that's most likely to let your brain like kick into gear quickly, I think. Are my under 1300s ready? We've got some high rated 1200s in this section. It's going to be a beastly fight for the tournament win in the under 1300 section today. Good luck to all of you. Strange desire to grab your blender. Yeah, Computer Flight. That's not a strange desire. That's a good one. That's a good one. Oh, I remember once I was broadcasting a chess tournament here on the dojo, and my partner came in and handed me a smoothie. Was anybody there for that one? That had to be the best dojo moment of all time. Whew. One can dream, I guess. One can dream. All right. I don't know why Wrathful Desert and Arctic 4 didn't get paired here. What's going on? It's weird. Huh. You never play as well as you do at 2 a.m. Well, maybe it's because you're playing at 2 a.m. Like, have you gone to bed at 10 p.m., Wee? Have you tried going to bed at 10 p.m.? That's a great first place to stall it, Amanda. You definitely have shot up to a very respectable chess level, and you will be able to figure out some ways to continue upwards. Charlie Silva coming into a weak square right off the bat. See, black plays c5 and e5 too quickly here. White can see that there's a weakness on d5 and choose all their developing moves with that in mind partly. So it's good opening for white. Personally, I still wouldn't occupy the square though. Two things I might do here. One, bishop g5 to trade and go to d5. But I really like this bishop, so I'm not really inclined to do it. The other thing I'd like to do here is just play g4, g5. Because now I see the opponent's castled, and the center's stable. The counter to a wing attack is often some kind of counterplay in the center, right? But because d5 is so weak for black, and these pawns are already both blockaded, black can't create any counterplay or counteraction on this side of the board. So I'm ready to just throw an attack at the opponent. This is what I would play here, is actually g4. Serious, not just a joke, not just a blitz move. This really looks good to me. If black takes it, you've got rook g1, knight f6, bishop h6, winning material pretty soon. I suppose knight e8 keeps this defended for a bit. But, I mean, it looks truly terrible for black. Queen d2, king here, takes, here, here, and black already has to sack the queen to avoid checkmate. This is something that this is something like serious, like a game can actually go that wrong that quickly. You can just go for it with the G pawn if you want to in a position like this. This is a real move. This is quality. And let's say the opponent doesn't take it, right, and plays knight here. Then the nice thing is you send the knight back here, which is not a good square, right? And now we're going to continue developing, and we already know we're going to aim for queenside castling, and we're going to aim for knight d5, knight f6 check to open up the king side. We can also use this diagonal to play h4, h5, g6 at some point if we want. But right here, once they play knight e8, once I've chased them back like that, I would go back to playing like some developing moves here. Probably like bishop e3 and stuff. Yeah, I want to have the option to castle. Although black is so far from... Honestly, there's no danger of a counterattack in the center. Our king is fine here. I guess I just might want the rook here. Do you think you could win this game, Fischer Seb, without even using these two pieces, the bishop and rook? Like, is white's position strong enough to just go like rook g1, knight d5, knight h4, and just win the game with the pieces, with the good pieces? What Jesse always tells us not to do? And just ignore these ones? I mean, the bishop's always influencing. It's fine. It's just this rook is really buried, right? If we leave the bishop here and the king here, then whenever we need it, the rook on a1 won't be available. So we're really just saying we're going to win the whole game without that rook if we start playing rook g1 and knight d5 here. Fischer Seb thinks probably white could actually win without that rook. I agree with what Paulie's saying. It's hard to change your sleep rhythm really drastically and dramatically from one day to the next. You usually have to like plan for it and gradually adjust for most people. So you're not conditioned to have a good sleep if you go to bed at 10. Yeah, maybe that's because like one day you go to bed at 3 a.m. and the next day you're like, I'm going to try and go to bed at 10 p.m. and it's just too big a change in your body rhythm. That might be it. So you might need to, as you say, practice it, but as Paulie says, you might need to sort of like work towards it. Like gradually move yourself that way. And Cannibal Bishop says, against Stockfish, he doesn't think you could actually win without this rook. But, you know, if you're like 1,000, your opponent's 1,000, you would go for it. Yeah. I think it's a close call. It's possible. I mean, you could also... So rook g1, knight d5, knight f6 is one plan. And h4, h5, g6 is another way. Try and do something similar. It's really possible because, I mean, white could basically argue that these pieces can't get to the king side anyway either. So you're just going to go checkmate the king there. Knight h5 instead. The problem with knight h5 here is that it's in view of this queen. So it lets white play something like knight h4 to f5 with a tempo on this knight. So it might work out or it might not, right? Because like g6, white just plays knight f5 anyway. Maybe you just leave this here and try and keep things blockaded. You never take this, you keep this defended, and you hunker down here. Maybe. Maybe a better defense, yeah. Good to point that out, thanks. All right, so knight d5, takes. King here, castles, queen e7, knight g5. Going for checkmate already. Wait, Charlie sacrifices pieces here. He needed to play queen h5 first. Oh my goodness. Charlie, you got to ramp up that pressure. You're just attacking with 2 pieces against the opponent's whole army, and now your 2 pieces are gone. And here Charlie needs f3 to avoid checkmate, but chooses g3, which loses the rook, which black could take, and black's up a knight for nothing. I mean, just completely winning the game. Wow. A wild start to the tournament for these players. Basil, I don't know what to do to get you here on time, man. I sat around for 40 minutes. I started the stream 40 minutes early. Just so that alert would go out, and so I just sat here for 40 minutes trying to help people find the tournament. Nothing more I can do. That I can think of. Yeah, so queen g4 was a mistake by black. It let white's rook escape with that f3 tempo. Let's check out first blood in today's tournament. The first game to end was this one here. Let's see how it went. Oh yeah, black's almost playing a famous variation of the Queen's Gambit, but not quite, because normally it would be the knight here, not the bishop here. And in this position, black would play c5 to counter white's center. Here, e5 is going to win a piece from black. So they had to waste tempo on the bishop, and now black's position is lost, more or less. I mean, yeah, pretty much lost. Just off of having to play a second move with this bishop and not having time to counter white's center. Chess and Chai, the first round is already being paired. So if you join, there's no way to play the first round that's already being played. Yeah. Pairings are done automatically. Whenever all the games from one round are done, the next round gets paired. By the way, for folks who struggle to find the tournament and get here on time or get registered or whatever, next week's tournament, here's a big wrinkle, is going to be on Saturday instead of Sunday. Okay. My partner's working all day on Sunday, and I figured I had a choice between running the tournament without commentary on Sunday or running it on Saturday with commentary. I wasn't sure which was best, but anyway, that's what I picked for next week. So for next week, our normal rapid tournament, our weekly high stakes practice is going to be on Saturday instead of Sunday so that I can be here for it. So everybody knows. Okay, so black castled, white pushed ahead. The knight left the king side, and white immediately went for checkmate. Goodness. If here, black didn't even take it, but if all this had happened, is this winning for white? I'm not certain. Let's check here, here, here. That's not clear. I'm not sure this works for white. Yeah, thanks for chiming in, Neve. That helps me make future decisions for sure with this. I'm sure it's not the last time this will come up where I have to choose whether to change the schedule so I can be there or not mess with the schedule. Nothing wrong with going for mate, says DM Stewart, unless it leads to white not having checkmate or their light squared bishop, right? I mean, maybe white can just gradually checkmate. Maybe we don't need to see like a mate in 2 or 3 here in order for white to be winning. Renek here says that we should trust that this all works for him. You know about the Greek gift, but you can never figure it out for sure, so you rarely try it. Yes, Stamen. So I want to say this, Stamen. Usually if the king comes back, you can calculate checkmate with queen h5, h7, h8. But often when the king comes out, it's harder to calculate. And so what you have to do is you have to do what Renek has done, which is play a bunch of these sacrifices so you get a sense for when it is or isn't going to work. Because you have to be able to look at a position like this and say, well, I don't have instant checkmate, but the king's kind of stuck here. Like, how are the attackers and defenders? You know, is this one likely to work or not? All right. Well, Computer Flight, there's also like a requirement on your opponent to play pretty decent defensive moves. So you can't be sure. You're not the only one that might have to play perfect moves, right? Like Renek, did you calculate past this, or did you just know, or did you just sort of like evaluate after reaching a position like this that you were happy? H4, not queen g4. Okay, h4, the idea of this move is to play h5 check, force the king to h6, where this guy can see him, and then play knight f7 or knight e6. That's the idea with h4. So usually black has to play rook h8 then. Renek just knows with pawn on e5 and bishop off here, he's doing good enough, huh? Do you have to calculate any? So basically, I think Renek is telling us Renek doesn't have to calculate a win here for white. With enough experience playing these positions, he can just go for this and you know, have basically an evaluation to guide him instead of a long calculation. And then once he gets here, he can probably find stuff like check here, check here, check. You know, just like a slightly unusual theme. But the point is to checkmate the black king by going to f7 since the rook came off of that file. Yeah, so you can find stuff like that when you've got some instinct for it. This one here that I did, I think my instinct is that in this position, there's probably still this move here to win for white. With the idea of rook e6, bishop e6, queen e6, checkmate. So that's my instinct, is that if you play rook e1 here, you'll still have a winning attack for white, like here. So the answer then, I guess, is to try it out, right? I think the answer then is to try it out, Stamen. Go for it sometime, even if you're not sure. I mean, the first requirement is that your opponent not have a lot of pieces that can come defend their king. That's kind of basic, right? And then from there, you can increase the detail and the accuracy of your instincts via some more practice. So the black king just moved away. Renek brought the bishop back to c2 to play queen d3. Played queen d3, and that was the end of the game. So that was first blood in today's tournament. Now let's go check out a game from the under 1300 section. What has just happened here? This knight has just moved in. Let's back up like 2 moves and see what's going on. We've got a tense position here between Literacyme and Boondock Striker. Material is about equal. Black's doubled pawns are going to be liquidated in a second, so that's not an important factor here. Trade. b4. Oh, white didn't see their own weakness on b3. The black knight did see it, comes sailing in, and it looks like that makes a winning position for black, right? Yes, Nordovik! I mean, I'm very sorry for the Denver chapter. That's kind of sad news for Denver. I was pumped that Denver had such a strong chess group. And the Bay Area always has lots of cool people, so it was nice that Denver had somebody cool. But that's really cool, Nordovik. Charlie's just coming out of a wacky game with the win in the under 1300 section here. Checkmate, we have not yet done a Bay Area dojo meetup, but that's certainly in the cards. I don't think it would be hard for us to do. I'm sure there's enough of us and enough interest that we could do something. Plus, I imagine people from like an hour away, like Sacramento or whatever, could make it if there was some warning and they wanted to and they planned for it. Okay, so we see Boondock Striker just completely taking over this position here with knight b3, trading the rook in the corner, rook coming down on e2, and just powerful position for black. Let's check out another game. Sean Pinto and Steve North. Wait, Steve North was just talking to us about the Greek gift. Maybe I should avoid this game. Sad Cat and my favorite professor. Sad Cat has got some happy knights. This is very cool here. 2 knights against 2 bishops. Materials equal. Black has some pawn structure weaknesses at a6 and d6. Some counterplay against c2, because this pawn would need to get to c3 to remove some of this rook's power. But right now, this knight is tied up with defending this knight. Like, if this knight were on e3 or something, maybe you could play c3, shore up those weaknesses. But then black could play bishop g5 and trade off the powerful knight. So this is not at all easy to play for white. Like, you look at this, and at first blush, you might conflate this position with this one here. This position here is like a win for white, positionally. You play c3, so their rook's file isn't that good, right? You can attack a6 and d6, both look pretty weak. Your knight runs circles around their bishop. They have almost no counterplay. It's basically like a winning position. But just add these 2 pieces, and actually, it becomes much, much, much more difficult to do this. Much more difficult to do this for white because, I mean, for one thing, a6 is defended for the moment. But for another thing, this knight is awkward on the c file, right? It lets the rook pressure c2 and b4 and e4. If you try and maneuver it to somewhere where it backs up this knight, you always have to worry about the bishop coming and trading the knight that's defending the knight. And if you move this knight away, then maybe your opponent can trade on d5 when this knight can't go back. So it's requires so much more skill for white to play out a position like this with the 2 knights than with the 1 knight. Yeah, as Renek says, you could partly see this as maybe like a superfluous knight, like it's doing nothing except hoping to like take this knight's place. So you've got like 2 knights with 1 square equals 1 extra unnecessary superfluous knight. And also just with the bishop pair, each bishop improves so much. they're not as easy to just predict and constrain and play around. If you've got a single bishop, it can really get abused. But with a pair, it's much harder. So, anyway, black played rook c6 to defend this pawn here. And that gives white the option of trading and playing knight d5. That's not the bishop you want to trade, but it messes up the opponent's pawn structure even more. And comes with some direct threats on e7 and f6. So white's going to have to calculate that. Sad Cat's going to have to really look at knight f6 seriously, even though normally you prefer your knight to your opponent's bishop and you don't normally want to make that trade. Knight b6 was maybe an idea statement, yeah. In a position like this, maybe like knight b6, rook comes up, and then knight to d5, so the knights have something to do. But think again that the knight on b6 is going to give your opponent options like bishop d8, and maybe trading their less good bishop for one of those knights, or just having the knights sort of dangling so that they can't maneuver as well. So that's always going to be that difference between two knights versus two bishops, or one knight versus one bishop. So, all right, so rook c6 played, and white's thinking here. What do you guys think of knight f6, trading the bad bishop? Calculate it. Knight f6, gf6, knight d5. Is that winning? Is that good? Should white do better? Doubling rooks, looking for that d6 pawn. Okay. Ursus wants a rook lift, which makes sense. Mr. Lammy says it wins a pawn. That's the result of the calculation. That's not yet saying if that's Mr. Lammy's preference or not to go for that pawn, but it does win a pawn, says Mr. Lammy. And Terra Incognito says you just play it because it looks good. Well, that's good, Terra Incognito. That you have instincts about what you do and don't like, because that's like a starting point to then start, having your chess ideas, seeing when they work or don't work, arguing about them with other people, etc. I think this rook d2 move didn't look the best because black could play bishop g5, right? Hitting the rook and getting out of the way of check and rook d6, which I think was white's idea. So I think this move here, black had a way sort of to get out. And I think it would have been good to just trade and go win a pawn. I think that's good. You threaten these two things. And if king g7, then you have rook d3, and they can't stop rook g3, knight f6. So I think this is a pretty good option for white. And a lot of other options are going to let black play bishop g5, and the game keeps going. It's very tricky to try and win these positions for white. In my opinion, it's just not that easy. So I would probably grab the pawn here myself if I were white. Does it win a pawn? Yeah, it wins a pawn because this is the only piece that can defend this, and you can just chase it off with rook g3. There's just no way to defend that spot now. Okay, so in the game, white doubles, black leaves the bishop there. Now white takes it and grabs a pawn. And, pressuring this and coming through the d file. And black decides for a desperation play to shake up the course of the game with an exchange sacrifice, letting the bishop out, starting to get into white's pawns. Force white to play the rook versus bishop endgame instead of the couple pawn up endgame. Problem for black is this doesn't look that challenging for white, this endgame. The only problem is that it just doesn't look tough for white. I would probably take this pawn. I understand Ursus's desire to just trade off black's remaining rook, which makes it quite easy to play against the bishop when it's the last piece on the board as a single bishop. So this looks good for white. Sad Cat chooses the rook trade, which I would say is basically like an equally practical decision as taking the pawn. I don't know. I mean, a computer would probably evaluate taking the pawn higher, but I think for like humans, it's pretty much equal. whether you want to capture your opponent's pawns or trade off their last rook. And yeah, if this were the, if this were the under 1300 section, the players were 11 or 1200, this would definitely be a challenging endgame. I think in the 13 to 1700 section, it's probably like an 80 to 90% chance that white converts and wins the endgame. And folks, we're in the 10 to 20%. I think. Now let's see if we're in the 1% of the 20% where the opponent doesn't take advantage of their chance. Will they ever know? Will they ever know? I told you, 80% chance that white converts this endgame. You guys saw rook a8 and didn't believe me. Not everybody in the dojo, Computer Flight. I discourage that every single week. I say, kids, ease up on the crack. And some of them have listened. I think probably 5% of dojoers actually listen to the three senseis. So, we're very effective here. Yeah, I mean, it makes sense to miss those. Also because, if you were actually playing this game, you were probably calculating, rook d6, bishop f5, rook a6 anyway, as you were playing, right? So then they go to a8 and you're like, oh yeah, whatever, same thing, takes, right? It's like you just complete what you expected. Look, check it out, man. You see that, Computer Flight? Gorkum didn't look at the computer game report on his first round game there. Yes! Score 1 for the senseis. I told you there were a couple percent there. Okay, this endgame's pretty tricky. I'm gonna actually call this pretty tricky. But white's playing it well other than rook a8. This is kind of nice, restraining the king for the moment. White wants to play g3 and king e3. I feel like black should play f4 here. Ooh. That makes it much easier for white to establish the king on a good square and start attacking stuff. Yeah. Yeah, listening but not following the advice is not what I'm talking about, DM. I'm only talking about those who actually listen to us, following it as listening to it, not hearing it. I would say you're hearing what we say if you're not following the advice. But Gorkum, I would say, actually listened. All right, by the way, the under 1300 section is in round 2. So here are those games. I'll open them up. Wait. Okay, there we go. First move. All right, good luck in round 2. Everybody there. Okay, and let's check out this. Let's keep watching this endgame. This endgame's pretty good. Playing this sub battle won't take that long, Scooty. It's like I think it's only one blitz game per person, right? So It's going to take, what, 6 minutes of your day? Now, where it's going to take all your day is if you watch everyone else on your team play. Yeah, I mean, to some extent, the point of playing Gorkum is to have games that you can analyze. And if you've looked at the computer report, well, you won't be able to analyze too much. Yeah. All right. So you guys see how to make progress here for white? Can white take here and win? What do you think, random? Whoo, intense moment. Intense moment. What about this random 1200? Do you think that this one was a good choice for white? I'm going to show the answer to random's question before we see the game continuation. Here, the king's covering the e-pawn. This king can't get within what's called the box of the pawn. By 1 square, it can't get there. If the black king were on f7 and could play king e7, black would be winning because of this pawn. But here, white just goes and queens and wins. King's 1 step away. So you're correct. You're correct. Rook takes c4 would have won for white. Instead, white took here, and black goes e3. And the rook can't get behind it because of this. So rook c5 to f5 was not the right plan for white. That was not the way to win. And actually the way to win that f5 plan, if you guys want a winning plan for white here, because you know your opponent doesn't have to put the bishop there and allow rook takes c4, right? Their bishop can go to f1 and d3 and e2 and stuff. A winning plan for white here, oddly enough, is this maneuver. Rook here, rook here, rook here, rook here, and then check. It's very, very random, but that maneuver, pushing the king backwards and letting your king start eating their pawns, is a pretty good maneuver for white in these positions, I think. You can also go rook c8 with the idea of rook check and rook g3. Okay, so here's where they're at. Black's up a bishop. Their king's coming in closer and closer. Now he has to choose if he wants a queenside or a kingside buffet. But, whew. The professor coming through with the endgame tactic. He was aware of that rook f5 e3 idea. That was up his professorial sleeves the whole time. All right, I think the 1700 plus section, your round 2 should just be starting right now as well. So anybody 1700 plus, go check on your game. Yeah. Okay, these games have started. Looks like everybody's made their first moves pretty much. Yeah, Hosepud missed a minute or two, but now Hosepud's there. Foos and Gorkum kicking it over here. And let's continue watching our endgame. How's it going? Wait, white got a passed pawn. Oh, there was some interlude here that wasn't that easy for white, for black to win. All right, Mr. Lemmy, next week it's going to be on Saturday, okay? Normally Sunday 10 a.m. Pacific is when we run these tournaments, but next week it's going to be Saturday so I can do commentary. You are able to join after round 1, by the way, Lammy, and you did join the tournament. You must not be familiar with chess.com tournaments, but you did join the tournament and then you withdrew or like closed live chess or something, and that's why you didn't get paired in round 2. But you did successfully join the tournament. I can see you in the player list. Useful note for everybody, if you're in a chess.com tournament and you close live chess, that messes things up. So You have to stay in live chess. I don't know why that's a problem for people, but a lot of people seem to leave live chess while they're in a tournament and then wonder why their games don't start and why they don't play the next round in a tournament. You can't play the tournament if you're not in live chess because the tournament is in live chess. I'm not sure how to explain that better. But basically, yeah, be in live chess. Yeah, congratulations to Prophylaxis on having that E3 idea and coming through and winning this endgame with a great comeback. Neve Storth warns us that sometimes chess.com is going to log you out if you step away for too long. Although in a rapid tournament, I don't think chess.com's logging people out within like 3 or 5 minutes between rounds. I think they're just closing their own live chess. And I've had many people come into like chat and be like, and they say that they closed live chess and they're like, it seems like I didn't get my next game because I had closed my browser. And I'm like, yes, well, where did you think your chess.com tournament was going to happen? But they definitely, they're self-identifying as they're closing it. All right, so 13 to 1700, round 2. Let's get it. Let's get it. I'm just going to pick an opening that appeals to me somewhere here. Oh, wow. Seth's Tarash is still here. Sponge and Sad Cat. All right, I think the opening that I liked best in this section. Wait, where did it pop up? Whoa, cool. Was it this one? Brony Yua. Okay, this is the one I want to check out at first, folks. Okay. By the time they learn OPFET, it won't exist anymore, yeah. All right, so let's talk about this opening for a moment from white. Bishop f4, I really don't like in this position. You're committing the bishop too early before you know if this is the right diagonal for it. You don't know enough about where the black pieces are going to be to pick, right? And this bishop in one move could go to b2. Well, sorry, in one move could go to g5, f4. E3 or D2, or in 2 moves could go to B2 or A3. It's a lot of different options. And this knight of 6 move from black has an advantage of flexibility, meaning it doesn't yet show black's cards and they can adjust their setup based on what they see from white. This move lacks flexibility, right? It commits. And now black knows that D6 is going to be a good setup, right? You can play King's Indian defense against the bishop on f4, and it's simply going to be badly placed since black's main plan will be e5. The bishop's blocked, and e5 will often gain a tempo on it. So this move refutes bishop f4 on move 2. Basically straight up. Right? This move shows flexibility. This move lacks flexibility. Black takes advantage of it by playing a move that's well positioned and chosen based on the information from where white's putting their pieces. And in that one moment, black equalizes the game. On move 2 already, they get equality. If white wanted a more flexible move, right, then they could play a move like knight f3, which keeps open different options for where the bishop might go, right? Same with c4, but c4 commits something as far as development speed and space, etc. But DM Stewart, you didn't get that advice from me. You're welcome to ignore other people's advice, because that's not good advice. So you can ignore that one, but I didn't say that one to you. I didn't tell you that at your particular rating range, 1e4 is the right move. 1e4 is playable at any rating range, and so is the move that you play, which is apparently 1d4. I would have never told you to switch. There's not one rating range where everyone should play e4 and some other rating range where they shouldn't play e4. That's completely silly. That said, your reason for not switching is also wrong. You don't need to prepare anything for any variation or any branch at your rating level. No opening prep necessary. You can just play moves that make sense. Okay, so bishop f4 gets played, gets refuted. Knight c3 looking to play e4. And then not playing e4. So white is sort of refuting themselves there. It's like you played knight c3 to play e4, then you don't even play e4. It's bizarre. Castles. Okay. And white's showing a desire to play bishop h6 and h4, h5, which can lead to a decent position for white. To me, the logical counter black would look for would be e5. But what black did is also sort of logical, which is to throw a counterattack against this side. The question is, can't white just take it? And Jim Stir, sorry, I don't mean to ignore you, but it's your question requires like, you know, a 3-hour answer, and we have a show here that's designed for a certain purpose of commentating on the games being played in the tournament. If somebody asks me like a question that I can answer in one sentence, I do so usually, depending on the volume of questions. But I'm happy to answer your question, just not during this particular show, because it would, like, I would miss the entire tournament to answer. So yeah, thanks for understanding. So to me, one really logical move for black here would be like knight c6, just fighting for these two squares, right? And looking to play e5 under the right circumstances. That makes a lot of sense. Fighting for dark squares. Oscar, when did you join the tournament? And which section are you in? You are in the under 1300 section. You played the first game and did not get paired in round 2, it looks like. Huh. Were you in live chess? When the game started? Did you have your did you close your browser maybe? I told you guys this happens like multiple times per week. If this is what it is. You were not in live chess, or no, you didn't close it? Online now. Online now. But is that in live chess or just online? Hang on one second. I'm going to click on somebody who is playing, like Boondock Striker. It just says online now. It doesn't say specifically if they're in live. It looks like Oscar is in live chess. That's confusing. You didn't close it. You were waiting there. When there's an odd number of players, one player does miss out. Terra Incognito, that's true. Or Incognita, sorry. Terra Incognita. Terror Incognita. But Oscar won the game in the first round. So Oscar shouldn't have missed the game in the second round. It always gives that bye to somebody who lost in the first round, not to somebody who won in the first round. I don't know what happened, Oscar. I'm really sorry. You're probably going to have to ask chess.com support what happened. Like, you're going to have to ask them. Like, I was in this tournament. I was sitting in live. I don't think you're the one who got the full point bye. Why didn't you get paired? Something, I don't know. Maybe they can, like, dig up records and explain it. I can't guess what it is, honestly. I'm really sorry. And I hope that you're going to get paired in round 3. DM Stewart, the C pawn can be vital for playing in the center for white in d4 openings sometimes, but it's not the only way to play. DM Stewart, if white played e4, would you see how knight c3 made some sense? Let's go back to move like right here. If white played this, do you see how knight c3 makes sense now? Opfashach is right again. It is absolutely time for those videos. It is absolutely true. Yeah. Okay, Stewart agrees, right? So this would be a different way to play the opening. The thing is, how would black stop white from playing e4 here after knight c3? This could have been a very clever move, right? Because normally the way that black would exploit a knight on c3 would be to play d5. That shuts down e4, and then you're like, oh, I really need my c-pawn. My knight's just sort of stuck here, right? Black can play c6, and the knight's just stuck, and you can't use your c-pawn, right? But here, black's just played d6. So if they play d5, I mean, they spent 2 moves getting the pawn there. It means they lost time. It also means the knights may be badly placed now, but the bishop's really well placed, and white's got an extra move of time and development, right? Which they could use to maybe play f3 and try and push for e4 anyway. The downside of f3 would normally be that you're behind in development, but now your opponent played d6, d5, and suddenly you can afford the time to play f3 and e4 maybe, right? Or white could use the time to play a move like queen d3, stopping bishop f5. This is a weird move, but it stops bishop f5, it gets castled quickly, and it also allows you to play for e4 at some point. So knight c3 could have been a clever move in this exact move order, actually, DM Stewart. And so it was very surprising to me to see white play knight c3 here, and then on g6 not play e4, right? And play these moves. So now the game gets super exciting. Black launches their counterattack. White's launching their attack. The excitement is huge, right? Oh! Now tactics are landing. Black was ready for bishop h6. And this is why they kicked the knight off of c3. So that as soon as white goes bishop h6, black brings the knight into e4. Now the queen is busy defending this bishop, so she can't deal with the knight. She has to move, but when the bishop is taken, she's got to recapture. This knight comes in here, pretty much winning a rook. White would have some chance to keep the knight trapped, but pretty much winning a rook. White comes in here. Black rook just tucks itself here. And it looks like James is just winning the game straight out of the opening here, right? Close. What does white have here? Knight g5 to h7 is maybe the threat here. Because black has nothing out except this, like, you know, rook winning knight adventure, right? I mean, they've got no pieces developed and no coordination. Those kind of go together, right? If you don't develop your pieces, they're rarely coordinated, but occasionally they are. So I'm saying both things. The pieces aren't out and they're not coordinated in a way. So this actually is like a rook-sized counter threat to trap this rook. And black might actually really consider f6 here. That's such a big threat. And you guys see James thinking for quite a while and not just, you know, gulping down a rook. It could be because he's picking which rook, but I think he would pick the undefended rook, not the defended rook, if it were just about taking the rook, right? So he spent a minute on it. I think he was assessing what he wanted to do about knight g5 to h7, and we'll see if if James came up with something clever or not about this. Yeah, what I've already started working on somewhat, but it's nowhere near completion, is basically like a plan for like a 12 to 1400 video. So it's not going to cover just a single 100-point range, but it's going to cover like a 200-point rating class. When I was growing up, these were called classes. So like 1000 to 1200 was maybe class E, and 1200 to 1400 class D, and 1400 to 1600 class C, 1600 to 1800 class B, and 1800 to 2000 class A. So different like classes is how a lot of tournaments were structured in these 200-point gaps. So I'm working on something, but obviously very slowly, and it should have been out by now, but a 12 to 1400 one is what I have in mind next. Checkmate Wee thinks the king's going to go to d7 to give the rook somewhere else to hide. Yeah. Interesting, huh? Interesting. Yeah. Black can also play e6 to try and defend the rook with the queen. But bear in mind, if this knight gets trapped, then black will be down a pawn instead of up anything, probably. Or maybe equal. So, yeah. So this is an idea. Knight d7 just to defend the rook is an idea. The knight could just start coming out already to save itself. Is knight g3 just winning? And then after knight h7, what would be next, DM? Yeah, Neve, b5 definitely has the idea of like opening up the b file at some point, or opening up some file on the queen side to attack the king. But as you saw it play, it also had the tactical idea of kicking this knight off of e4, so that if white ever went bishop h6, black would have this knight e4 tactic. And you can see in the game, it wasn't going to be that easy to break through here and open up files, right, with this knight blockading. Maybe what black would have done next, if white didn't go for bishop h6 and just played a developing move, maybe black would have played bishop d7 next to make white play b3 and just trade it and break open white's structure on the queen side a little bit. Maybe that would be the follow-up. And a5 was played first, maybe because of bishop d7, queen b4, defending the knight. Although, I mean, there's stuff to calculate there. A5, queen b7. But anyway, the way the game went, it went straight into these we don't believe each other tactics, and now the players are in just a scrappy fight, right? To see who can eat whose pieces faster. Oscar, hopefully you should be in live chess and you should get paired for round 3. I have no idea what went wrong with round 2. You should contact chess.com support about it, but I don't know that they're not going to probably answer you in like 3 minutes. Can you still see like your tournament section? Like when you're in live chess, do you see the kickoff October under 1300 and like the other players in the section? It looks like the last game of round 2 is being played right now between Charlie and Grishark over here. Like a shark version of Grishuk. That's cool. This looks like the last end game in your section. You can try it, Strange Quark. You can always try late join. There's not like an amount of time after which you can't late join these tournaments. It's just a question of there's a limited number of players who can late join. So if other people have already late joined and filled the tournament, you won't be able to join, but you can always try. Also bear in mind it's based on your rapid rating, so not your blitz rating. So you have to pick the right section to click on based on rapid rating. Okay, back to our feature. Broniua and James. Whoa! Broniua throwing a tactic in. Okay, so basically Every chess.com tournament allows a certain percentage of late joins, Strange Quark, based on how many people were in the tournament in round 1. And I don't remember if it's 25% or 30%. It's something like that. So let's say there are 10 people in the tournament in round 1. It will allow an additional maybe 3 people to late join at some point. Whether they late join in round 2 or round 4 is irrelevant. It'll allow the next 3 people to join. If the tournament has 50 people in it, it'll allow up to 15 people to late join over the course of the tournament. So, yeah, black does not take this knight because of the threat to the queen here. And instead, whoops, I have to click over here. And instead just moves the king, check with the pawn. Now the king has to choose if he wants to, like, try to run for a7 or if he's bold enough to grab this knight. What do you think? How bold is this black king? And how bold should this black king be? Is this knight a tasty dish or is it a poison apple? Or as Crow asks, is taking the knight mate in 2? Take the knight and run. Some people say queen d4 is mate. Some people say take the knight and run. And checkmate we gives us the full variation, which I will now play out for everybody. Everybody who thinks it's like suspiciously like checkmate will find it useful to see exactly what it is. Check this way, stopping the king from running the way it wants to. Here, still a chance if it could get here, but check on this diagonal, and the king is forced forward. Once you see the king here, you probably know it's over. White's got 5,000 ways to win at this point, but here's the fastest, as given to us by checkmate we. So James wisely keeps his king back for the moment. White goes for queen d4 anyway, looking for that checkmate. This game is a roller coaster, says Adam. It sure is. For the players playing this round, this game against each other, this is absolutely intense. I imagine their breathing is altered, their sweat is coming out. Queen d4 seems to run into just pawn takes, right? Defending the king, taking the piece and blocking. Note that black still basically has 0 coordinated pieces. Just a king flying through the center. But a lot of extra material. I mean, basically double white's army at this point. Pretty close, other than the queens, but on the rooks and knights and stuff. A lot to prove for white. A lot to prove. Black has to play well too, right? I mean, I would say black's winning, but you can see what, last move black dodged a trap where they would have just been checkmated. So black's going to have to be careful if they want to win this game. All right, we've got a huge army sitting on the sidelines and cheering the king in single combat. Very good. It is very jarring to look at a position like this and like black's position, isn't it, Seth? Like, well, I would never really play like this, I don't think, but I mean, I suppose black's winning. The problem statement is that black's going to get to play moves in between white's moves. So queen c4 and e4 is a reasonable idea, except black, all they have to do is stop queen b5. And they've got 2 moves to do it, right? So bishop a6, for example, will just absolutely deal. Queen f4. Covering the knight's escapes and keeping the tension. But now white's wishing they hadn't sacked their knight on c5, right? They wish they just played knight h7, tried to take a rook or take all these pawns and keep the game going before. Now the material invested is sort of like an ultra decisive amount of material. Terror tells us that black's winning until he loses. Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, technically the position's winning, but you have to be very careful when your king's your only developed piece. So, I was winning, and then oops, I blundered, checkmate. Is how many of these games have gone. Yeah, usually it's good for the opponent when they move, so yeah. Unfortunate. So, queen d6. This is a great move for black. Challenging the queen when white doesn't want to trade queens, so it's basically developing with tempo in a sense. It also effectively means this knight is alive again, so white's material disadvantage can be calculated, including this knight for black. These pieces are all so bad. Maybe this knight's going to come back in and be the knight and continue trying to win the game with just the queen and the knight. Actually, it would have been best if black had won the game with only the knight moving and every other piece like this. That would have been a pretty special bingo achievement, right? To win a whole game with just your knight wandering around. Sometimes you'll see beginners just moving their queen and they actually like win the game just moving their queen. They just capture all the opponent's pieces one by one with their queen. But I don't know if I've ever seen a single knight just go out and win the whole game. Queen e3 with the retreat. So now knight g3 to f5 could make sense. Black's looking pretty safe, right? I mean, black's army's on the back rank, but what does white have out, right? I mean, not too much threat. Now he's like, I almost want to just bring my bishop back to a6. I'm worried about e4, queen b5. Seth predicts resignation, not checkmate. Seth, if somebody traded off all your pieces here, would you resign nowadays, or would you wait for them to rook roller you with 2 extra rooks or something? Yeah, black actually comes back to deal with e4. Obviously here you wouldn't resign, but Seth was saying the game would end with trade, 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 resigns. He said exactly 3 trades, right? White's got exactly 3 pieces left. So that made me wonder if Seth would resign this position if all white's non-pawns were traded off, or if he would play it out against the extra pieces. I'm just curious. Got to keep track of how everybody in the dojo is, developing. I'm gonna grab some water, folks. Is it bad to resign around now, Computer Flight? Depends on your rating and the rating of your opponents. I think, in general, you're probably better served by being like a grim and determined, prove it kind of person than being a like, oh, I hate my position, I hate myself, I resign kind of person. Like long term, it's probably good for Seth that he's so determined and plays things out. Because like one day down the road, it'll be, when he's like 1800 playing against other 1800s, it'll mean that he'll be saving endgames where he's down a pawn. Obviously, he's never going to save a position down like 2 rooks and a knight against like, a real player once he's really good. But the attitude and the experience, like the outlook, the attitude is going to come in handy at some point, I think, for sure. So What happened, Charlie? You won that endgame down a piece, Charlie? What are you... Right, something that might make some players with white resign is black developing all their pieces. As long as black's leading with the king, I don't think many people should be resigning, yeah. Sorry, Grishark. What happened, man? I'm going to show you how to win your endgame, okay? I'm sorry about this. I'm going to show you how to win it. Up to here, this is really good. Actually, this endgame's not easy to win. White's got 2 pawns against... I mean, black's got 2 pawns against your bishop. It's very, very close. Okay. Oh, yeah, this move here from black is really good. Actually, you basically can't... Yeah, I mean, you can't be faulted. This is not really, like, winnable once black's trading off the pawns. This was good by Charlie, this h5 and g4. Man. Okay, okay. So let's collect ourselves. I think, Grishark, you need your remaining pawns. You don't want to run out of pawns. Yeah. Tricky. Tricky. I think you might actually need to play a move like rook d2 just to cover your pawns, or rook d4 or d3, one of these moves. The point of these moves is that you know your king's going to go here and defend these pawns, and then your rook's going to defend this pawn while attacking here. Right? If they ever come here, you come here, and you defend that and attack the opponent's structure. This is a very, very tough endgame to play, actually. This is very, very tricky endgame. Very, very tricky. I had mostly been focusing on this other game, Brony Yua. I only saw your game out of the corner of my eye, and I thought Charlie was down a piece for nothing, but actually he wasn't. So that was a very, very close endgame, actually, all along. But yeah, as Crow says, you have to like predict that rook's going to come to e2, and how are you going to handle it? That was like the really tricky moment right there in that game. All right, has black gotten some pieces out while we were looking at that endgame for a second? Black has. Look at that. The black pieces came out. And now black's pretty close to cruising here. Yeah, that's another valid perspective on it, Opfashach. Yeah. Whoa, look at that knight. Oh, that's a crushing piece. Now James is cruising. You guys can see that. Just taking all the space, just smacking white with all the pieces, right? Just boom, 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 boom. I've got so many pieces. You know, you can't trade anything with me. Or is saying around now we can resign. Certainly queen a4, that's a finishing touch. But once you get here, you might as well let your opponent play mate in 1, right? Like you're not saving any time by resigning now. So there we go. GG to James on that one. And let's check out Qbert and Gorkum in a time scramble rook endgame. White is threatening to win this endgame with that beautiful king position. Perfect rook as well, shielding the king from checks from behind and cutting off the opponent's counterplay. I do not see what Gorkum can do to get counterplay here. Wow. Yeah, Francis, that was interesting that all the pawns were still on the board there. It was a very unusual game. Very unusual game. Okay, and Gorkum looked at it for a while and resigned. I mean, just nothing for black to do. No counterplay at all. I'll open up another endgame for you. Trainer Sjord against Alex Babel. Black with an extra rook. White looking for a perpetual check that is not to be. I'll give you guys a different position. Leip against Gaston. Queen and bishop versus king and queen. This check only gives white one good move. White finds it. The bad move would have been king h7, queen h5, checkmate. Okay, by the way, some other tournaments should be starting up. So let's see. Under 1300s, round 3 has started. And I don't know what's going on. Oscar has been not paired again. I'm sorry, Oscar. I do not know what's going on. What is happening here? Oh, no, you did play. You did play. You did get paired in round 3. Okay. I just missed the game, but you got to play. That's great. Okay, I'm happy to see that. And in progress. 1700 plus round 3 is now starting. And I think this is the last game of the 13 to 1700 round 2. So that's going to be ending really soon, and then you all will be on to round 3 as well. Folks, every now and then when you've been at your computer for an hour or two, take a little break, look away from your screen, look off into the distance, do a little exercise, jumping jack. Maybe I'll do some push-ups and I'll switch from standing to sitting and so forth. Okay. Okay. Awesome. All right. All right, now we're ready to stare at our screen some more. How's this going? Gaston is trying to win. He wants to play bishop here, but can't. King here, queen check would get the queens off the board. Very hard endgame to win, yeah. Very hard to win. Okay, king comes around from this side, trying for this. White's got the queen trade, and that is a draw. Well fought. Lippe and Gaston. And on to round 3. On to round 3 for the 13 to 1700s, right? Hey, Quiet Grandma. It's been a while. So here's round 3 up on top board, so to speak. We've got James against And Magical, both with 2 out of 2 points to kick off the tournament. Seth and Brony Yua on board 2. Probably have a lot of people with 1 point out of 2 here, right? Yep. Okay. All right, it's round 3. Let's check out Charlie and Boondock Striker. Here, we've got 1 extra pawn for Boondock Striker. It's a very solid position that looks a lot like a Slav defense to me. I see chess.com labeling it a Caro-Kann defense, and Caro-Kann and Slav have a lot of structural similarities, sometimes some of the same positional ideas. Light square bishop out, right? And then set up solidly in the center with these pawns. A little bit less space. Here comes Charlie. He's looking for rook to d7. For that rook, Black has to choose between knight b6 to try and stop it, but the knight's very riskily placed on b6, but it's also counterattacking stuff. Or knight b4, solidly placed, kills the file, but does let the rook in. Or a square that doesn't make any sense and allows Charlie to play rook d7 for free. So, what do you all think? What was the best choice here for the knight? The move I said is no good, or one of the two moves that I was thinking of? Yeah, f4 is technically a legal move. I have a tendency to play a little bit too statically myself lately, and like just like to go into like defended squares where I'm defended, where I can operate slowly and do whatever I want. Not sufficiently dynamic, which is the willingness to trade one advantage for another and, you know, play with the initiative or against the initiative. So my instinct when I first looked at this position was like, oh, knight b4 is probably right on b6. It's like you're trying to stop rook d7, but you're so shaky here. You know, white's going to play rook b1 and b7 anyway with your knight just hanging. But then I thought about it, and really what black should do is go take this pawn on a4. So knight b6 is the best move. And if white kicks you out of here, you know, so be it, right? You go here, you take. Fine, now we're not there. It's okay. There's choices in this position for how to handle things. But basically having this passed a pawn is really key. Could play maybe c5, bishop a1. I don't know if that's good. Could play bishop c5, could play knight c5. You know, this is sort of like one option. We could sack both our extra pawns because we don't need to be ahead pawns. Go bishop c5 and trade off this bishop. Then after this move, this move, this move, knight here, rook here, 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 here. That doesn't work for black. Leads to a draw. Maybe just spend a move defending this pawn, just because it keeps this bishop out for a little bit longer. Taking on c4 as an option, sure. Rook b1, knight c4. Bishop moves somewhere like this. And we've not even looked at this passive rook b8, but that's entirely possible as well. That with the knight on c4 or a4, that maybe you just play rook b8 and defend the pawn. Right? There's also an option here that we didn't look at yet. You just defend it, keep these pieces out for the moment. And if white does something like this, well, now the pressure's coming off of here, right? And we come back out and start moving the a-pawn. With basically no counterplay. We probably just need that one passive rook b8 move after the one active knight takes a4 move. Anyway, knight went to f4. Try to play c5. Okay, shutting in this piece, but I mean, now the knight could come back to d5 and keep the rooks out, right? Bishop g5. Rook c2.